This has been the greatest geopolitical disaster in American history. We are much, if you ask yourself your question, are we better off now than we were 40 days ago? The answer is an unequivocal no.
From a guy that applauded the Iran nuclear deal, of course. Rebecca Heinrich is a senior fellow at the Hudson Institute, and she joins us tonight. Rebecca, good to have you back on. Do we still have a ceasefire tonight? I guess is my first question.
Yes, there's a ceasefire in place. It is fragile, and I'm not counting on the Iranians to live up to their end of the deal. And it's not even clear to me what the Iranians think that they've agreed to. But I'm not concerned about it, Rob, because the United States hasn't moved one single piece of military equipment, not one airman out of the region. All of our military power is still there. We have an enormous military advantage over this rump regime that's left inside Iran. We've completely gotten rid of their air force, their navy, their missile capacity, their ability to rebuild their missiles and their launchers. And so the United States is still in a really strong position. Yeah. So if the Iranians begin to do things that we believe are in outright violation, the United States can resume epic fury very easily.
Is one thing that's the hardest thing to figure out, is the Strait of Hormuz open? Does anybody actually know that? Because it depends on where you read and who you ask.
So it is open, except that the Iranians can just merely threaten to terrorize it. Yeah. And that threat is enough to cause insurance companies, as you know, to increase prices. And then you don't have companies that want to go through the strait. But if the United States continues to successfully completely degrade Iran's capacity to threaten the strait, then they don't have the ability to make good on their threat. We've already significantly degraded their ability to do that. So when President Trump says to our allies, now is the time for you to go get your oil, now's the time to escort these ships through the strait, he's being serious. Now is the time, especially during this ceasefire. Yeah. This is whenever I would really try to get an international coalition together, Rob, to get that oil moving again.
There's an argument to be made, and I think it is a point to be made, that the ceasefire has given Iran a much-needed break, time to come up for air in the middle of all this. And some would say this break is a win for the regime. Do you think that there is a chance that this tattered regime is authentically seeking a deal that we would ever agree to?
Not at this point, and I'm not really worried about them coming up for air. I mean, we essentially have our boot at their throat. Yeah. I mean, the Israelis have so thoroughly penetrated their government. We have eliminated more than 1,000 of their senior IRGC and Basij leaders. Right. We have taken out their nuclear scientists. So, I mean, at this point, it's like, what are they going to do with a couple of weeks? I mean, they can barely communicate with one another. So I'm not worried that this is going to give the Iranians any sort of necessary oxygen they need to regroup.
What do you think the end of this is? Because, I think it will be a pretty fair criticism if this ends up being just us mowing the lawn, which is kind of what, that's how they've always described it in Israel. We're going to go knock them down, knock down their progress, but leaving the regime in place. If this ends up just being a really big mowing of the lawn in Iran, is that a failure?
I don't think it's a failure. I'm already happy. I already think that the United States is so much safer than we were 4 weeks ago, but I still want the total victory, the win. And I think a win would constitute the United States ensuring that Iran cannot have access to a nuclear weapon entirely, whether it's by removing all their nuclear material or having some mechanism, international force to see that inside the country. And the United States and our allies have to be the ones controlling the Strait of Hormuz. There cannot be a scenario in which Iran can then threaten the Strait of Hormuz credibly, right, because, of course, we know that the Chinese back Iran. So that would be a big geopolitical, I think, mistake for the United States to permit that to happen.
Right. Rebecca Heinrich, good to have you on. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Everybody's reporting the same stories, the same spin. You turn the channel, it's always the same. But not us. We're different. We report the real news. No spin, just the facts. Turn to us, and you won't turn back.
Tune in to Rob Schmitt Tonight on Newsmax.